Can I ask everyone to mute themselves, please? And we're just waiting a couple more minutes because there's still a few more people trying to come in. Hello. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello. We're just waiting a few more moments. There's still a few more people just getting admitted in. Perfect. We might start just because I think we've let most people in now. I just want to start by saying we're going to be recording this. So if anyone doesn't want their cameras on, feel free to turn it off. But my name is Nicole. I'm one of the Community Engagement Officers at the North Eastern Public Health Unit, and I'll be your chair for today's forum. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we're meeting today and pay my respects to our elders past, present and emerging. Next slide, please, Rachel. So the purpose of the forum today is to provide our LGAs within the NEPHU catchment an educational overview of thunderstorm asthma and provide communication resources to share with their communities to help spread awareness. Speaking today, we'll have Raquel Cowan, our clinical lead with NEPHU, who will present on thunderstorm asthma, and Ameera Syed, one of our communication officers, who will share information on available communication resources. We'll allow plenty of time after the speakers to ask any questions. You can ask questions by typing them into the chat, raising your hand during question time, and then we'll individually to turn on the camera. Please feel free to turn it off now. We ask you to stay muted during the presentation just to avoid any feedback. And I'll ask you through a clinical overview of the thunderstorm asthma.
Thanks very much, Nicole, and thanks very much for everybody for turning up today. I'm really appreciative of so many people today. Just let us know if you can't see anything, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some of your questions. So this is obviously talking about epidemic thunderstorm asthma. So I just thought I'd take it back another step and kind of say, okay, what is asthma itself? I think those of you that do have asthma are probably well aware of what asthma is, but asthma can sometimes be unrecognised, and that's really important. It's not just a childhood illness, and we can have it in childhood and it can continue through to adulthood, or it can actually develop in adulthood. I certainly get it when I've got a cold, so and that developed in adulthood. Symptoms do vary, but breathlessness, so not being able to breathe and not feeling like you're getting any air in, is a really important sign or symptom. Wheezing, so a really high-pitched noise when you breathe in and out, is something that you can experience. Someone with a persistent cough, even though you don't really have a cough, especially at night or early in the morning, and that's usually triggered by cold. A sensation of being really tight in the chest as well. And asthma is all about your airways reacting too fast and too much. And so what I mean by that, so if we look on the left-hand side with the normal lung, this is your tubing that you breathe through, and it's nice and open and it's easy to get air in. When you're having an asthma attack, what can happen is that you get, you can get lots of swelling in that tubing, and so it makes it very hard for the air to actually get in. And we can have a number of triggers for asthma, so allergens like pollen and stuff, cigarette smoke, dust, mites, fumes, strong odours. Even some people will get asthma with some strong perfumes. Chest infections, which is usually when I get mine. Exercise as well can trigger it. Pets, so those people obviously people that are allergic to cats or dogs will get an asthma attack or can get an asthma attack with it. And very rarely we do get thunderstorms as well. So when we're looking at treatment for asthma, it kind of goes into two categories. So it's looking at relievers. So they act very quickly to, sorry, I'm just going to turn my phone off. They act very quickly to relieve the symptoms. So they open up that tubing and you usually take it during an asthma attack. So most people know Ventolin, but Asmol or Atrovent is something that people use, or Briconide. And usually one of the recommendations is to use a spacer. So it's really hard when you have an asthma attack to coordinate the pushing down and the breathing in. So we always suggest a spacer is a really good idea to use. Then we've got the preventers, and so they very slowly stop that sort of inflammatory response and that inflammation that happens to reduce the tubing size. And you take it every day, and although it doesn't kind of feel like it's working, they really do are very effective. And there are a number of treatments that are available on the market. So the question is, what is epidemic thunderstorm asthma? So it's actually a very rare event. It doesn't happen with every thunderstorm or anything, but it's a really particular type of weather event. There's only really been 4 episodes in the last 35 years, and the last one was in 2016, and which is probably the one that everybody remembers, and has certainly triggered a lot of response from the Department of Health in terms of supporting hospitals to support the community around these events. And it's when a large number of people develop asthma symptoms all at once, and it's usually related to the high amount of grass pollen in the area and a certain type of thunderstorm. So I'll go through those details in a second. And it does result in a lot of people having an asthma attack and needing to go to hospital. So if we take it back to November 21, 2016, it was a really sunny day. It was really dry. We'd had a very dry winter. It was the hottest day in Melbourne, 35 degrees, and there was lots and lots of pollen in the air. The Bureau of Meteorology, and I knew I was going to struggle saying that, issued a thunderstorm warning for the sort of the northwestern districts of Victoria, and subsequently extended their warning to Melbourne and Geelong. And by 5 p.m, wind gusts started reaching Geelong, and by 6 o'clock, the storm had actually reached Melbourne. And within 15 minutes, we had about 200 calls, so 6 times the usual number to the 000. And they had greater than 5,000 calls in the first 24 hours, so completely overwhelmed the system. Greater than 8,000 calls in 24 hours, and many of the pharmacies, because salbutamol or Ventolin is the first sort of treatment, as we were talking about before, in terms of being a reliever, many places sold out of salbutamol. When we sort of specifically look at what happened, is that this is sort of the 24 hours of the whole of the 21st of November. And we can see that peak of calls to the hospital, to 000. And we can see that the Northern Hospital had 315 presentations in that very small period of time, which is just completely overwhelming to the system, and people were being called in all over Melbourne to come to work to help out with the number of people coming to hospital. So what happened in the first 30 hours? We know that over 3,000 people presented to hospital with the lung conditions, which is, excuse me, my nose is dripping, significantly higher, more than normal. We had 476 of those people that actually needed admission to hospital because of their asthma, which is almost 1,000 times more than what we normally see. 35 people actually needed admission to the intensive care unit, and unfortunately 9 people actually died and lost their lives. And I'm sure you all saw the events and all the news around families that lost loved ones at that time. When they actually looked at who actually died, the average age was really young, which makes it incredibly sad. Many of these people were actually where we live in the northwestern suburbs. 1 in 3 were actually ex-smokers. 6 of them were of Asian descent. All were known asthmatics. 8 also had that hay fever, so that reaction where you get in spring, especially in autumn, where you get lots of flowers, lots of pollen in the area, in the air. You can get a little bit of shorter breath, but you also get that runny eyes, runny nose stuff that drives you bananas. So the question is, when is it actually thunderstorm asthma? And so the 4 key features of it is that there was a high concentration of pollen, and it was actually particularly the ryegrasses that are significant in that area. So the storm swept, because everything was dry, swept all the aerosols up into the clouds, and it actually broke those pollen into smaller pieces, as you can see there. So really small pieces that then were thrown back down onto ground level. And as you can see in this informatic, up into the clouds, and then down into the person at ground level, where the pollen was breathed in by a number of people who were sensitive to the pollen and caused a lot of asthma attacks. And because the ryegrass pollen was really, really small, it was very easy to get really deep into the lungs. So one of the things that we're kind of focusing on now is that there's been another alert that's gone out by the Department of Health, warning that there could potentially be a thunderstorm asthma event, and they're predicting it to occur any time between October to December. It's not to say that every thunderstorm is going to cause this at all, and certainly over the next few days we're going to get a bit of rain, but there will be warnings that will come out from the Bureau of Meteorology and a lot on the media and social media that will actually alert you to when that's actually happening. Who is at risk of thunderstorm asthma? So, as I said, it's not with every thunderstorm, but those at risk are really those people that already have asthma, and especially if you do have lots of trouble with your asthma and require a lot of Ventolin. People with undiagnosed asthma, and so these are the people that may have hay fever and not really recognise it. They have that high-pitched wheeze, that breathlessness, that tight feeling in their chest, that persistent cough. I'm not sure if someone's got their mic on. Thank you. And those with hay fever, and also those that have had asthma in the past are really those that are at risk predominantly. So what can you do? So if you do suffer from asthma, or you do suffer from hay fever, or you have had asthma in the past, what we recommend is that you go and visit your GP and work out an action plan, asthma action plan. And so it tells you exactly what to do when you're well, what to do when you're not so well, you've got a mild cough or cold, and what to do if your symptoms get worse. If you do take medication for your asthma, it's really recommended that you do take your usual medications and be really mindful that, if you're on a preventer, take it every day, because that helps reduce that sort of too quick, too fast, too much sort of inflammatory response that you get that closes off those tubing. Some of the other sort of simple things you can do is that to avoid exposure to thunderstorms. So if you are very prone to asthma, then stay at home. If you have an air conditioner, and if it sits on the outside and sucks in air from the outside and brings it into your house, then we suggest not using that because you're actually bringing the pollen into your home. If you use a fan to cool, you can use a fan to cool and calm you, like that kind of sensation of just air over you. And we actually use this in the hospital for people who are suffering from asthma and feeling really short of breath. That sensation of just air blowing over you is actually really helpful to help calm you down. Also, having a reliever handy with a spacer is really useful as well. And there are a couple of examples of the spacers. And have an asthma first aid plan ready. So this is something that you can also do as well. Funnily enough, 4 steps as well, and it's all about the 4s. The first is that, especially if you're sitting with someone who's having an asthma attack, you sit the person upright, you make sure that they're calm, and you stay with them. What you do is you give them 4 separate puffs of their reliever, so the Ventolin, so you puff it into their spacer and get them to take 4 just normal relaxed breaths. No need to do big deep breathing or anything like that. If they don't have a spacer, then you do get them to puff, but you take them a big deep breath and get them to hold it in their lungs. do that 4 times. And if that doesn't settle them down, wait another 4 minutes and do another 4 goes. And the thing is, oops, I'll just go back. And the thing is that if that breathing or that doesn't after a couple of times, it's really not settling down and they're really struggling for breath, or you're really struggling for breath, then that's when you call 000 and you say, I need an ambulance, and that you've got someone who's having an asthma attack, and they'll be able to talk you through it and send an ambulance as soon as they can. During that time, don't stop doing that 4 breaths every 4 or 4 puffs every 4 minutes. Just keep going with that until the ambulance actually arrives. So that's a sort of a simple guide to, well, not really a simple guide, but a little bit of a guide to thunderstorm asthma and some of the things that you can do for yourself. So is there any questions at the moment? I'm looking over at the side because I've got everybody on screen over here. I've got 2 screens going at once. And just looking for any questions. Is there any questions at the moment? We've got someone with their hand up. Philippa?
What can you do if you have an asthma attack, or you feel like you're having an asthma attack and you don't have any Ventolin or medication?
I think it's one of those things where you try and calm your breathing down. So it's sitting upright in a chair, just sitting there, seeing you. If there's someone with you at home, then that's great. You can get them to sit with you, and if it gets out of control, they can call 000. If you don't have any Ventolin, it's sitting there, and it's just taking steady breaths. So just breathe in, count to 3, breathe out, count to 3, breathe in, count to 3, breathe out, count to 3. And it's that very slow in and out it's really helpful, because it's about because it's that feeling that you can't get air in that's the most distressing thing. And that kind of sets off a whole kind of catch-22 situation where you kind of can't breathe, so you become really distressed, which makes you not being able to breathe. So like it's this whole circular fashion. If that actually doesn't sort of settle over, the 4 minutes or whatever, then I think it's probably worth calling the ambulance, because they can send someone out to you and they will have Ventolin and stuff if you're really needing it. But it's just about sort of sitting down and trying calming yourself. If you've got a fan, get the fan and blowing on you as well, because as I said, that sort of sensation of air on you and on your face is really helpful. Lena? Lena Nguyen, you've got your hand up. I can't hear you though, unfortunately. Did you want to just type your question in the chat and we'll try and answer it? I might move on to Diana. Oh, no.
Question, thank you.
There you go.
My question is, like, once you get the thunderstorm asthma, does it go away after some times, or it stays with you?
So it's basically an asthma attack that's triggered by a specific thunderstorm, and that sort of really dry conditions and the pollen going up and getting broken down. It's like in any sort of other asthma attack, it's just that the thunderstorm triggers it. And so by using the Ventolin is something, or the reliever is something that can happen. And once that it does actually settle down in a majority of cases, and most people don't need to call an ambulance, and most people can manage it at home. One of the things that they noticed with the one at 2016 is that a lot of people turned up to the hospital, but by the time they needed, and everybody was being triaged, so obviously the people that were really struggling the most and needed to get sort of oxygen on them and stuff were all taken through triage. But those that were sitting in the waiting room, a number of them actually managed to settle their asthma down enough and they're attacked down enough that they could actually go home and then visit their GP the following sort of next couple of days. Avunk?
Thank you.
Hi, and thank you for the presentation. I got just two quick questions. When we are talking about the aircon, is it okay to just make sure that it circulates the indoor air, but not turn off completely?
Yes, that's fine.
And
As long as you're not sort of bringing stuff in from outside. So
Yeah.
all those, the sort of split cycle and stuff like that's fine to use. It's just more not making sure stuff's coming in from outside.
Yeah, and are there any other controls that can be considered, such as air filters or purifiers indoors, and using some respirators? And what kind of respirators would that be?
Yes, you can definitely use any of those sort of evaporative coolers and stuff like that you can have in, because a lot of it's that sort of sensation of air blowing as well. And as far as respirators, so if someone's got like a nebulizer or something that they can use where they have a mask over themselves and they can put in the Ventolin in there in those little containers, then use them. Even if you don't have the Ventolin, just put the mask on and that seems to help.
Thank you.
Thanks. I've got I Dare You Connect. Sorry, I don't know your name.
Sorry, I'm Sue, but I can't change that name.
That's all right.
Because it
Thanks,
won't
Sue.
let me. That's technology and I love it. Two questions from me as well. And you may have already answered this and I didn't hear it. I know that that there is severe risk of thunder asthma this year. Do we know, or how long in advance do we know if it's going to be a asthma thunderstorm, or do we know?
The Bureau of Meteorology are actually following all of this really closely, and also the pollen counts in the air. So I think from the understanding of the thunderstorm asthma is that I think there will be quite a bit of advance warning like the day before or the morning of or something like that will probably come in. I think part of the problem in 2016 is that because it was such a rare condition that although we were kind of notified that the pollen counts were going up and there was a risk, nobody kind of understood what that actually meant. So I think people are so much more aware and there's been a lot of resources and stuff around. And we'll send out some resources to you in terms of what there are some websites and stuff that you can link through to monitor that. And I might let us go on a little bit. Yeah.
Sorry, one other question. Masks. It has been suggested to us that if it's threat of thunderstorm, masks are useful if you do have to be outside. What mask should we use?
I think any mask that you can use. I think the pollens are probably not going to get through the surgical mask. So even though even a surgical mask is probably adequate, if you've got an N95 mask, then that would be great. And obviously that's much more accessible now than previous. But yeah, certainly, yeah, any mask helps to reduce the pollen load going in.
Thank you.
Cool. And I will clarify. Yeah. The old paper bag trick is actually a really good one, just because it's that sort of helps to calm people because it's that hyperventilation. And if you're breathing too much in and out, you lose too much carbon dioxide. And so the whole concept is that you rebreathe in the carbon dioxide and that helps to settle everything down. So yeah, that's fine. And it doesn't need to be a paper bag either. You can just use a plastic bag as long as you don't put it on over your head, obviously. And I'm not quite sure the dose of Bricanol. I think it's just 2 inhalations if you are having 2 inhalations instead of 4 in terms of the puff. So it's just whatever you twist and then 2. But I'm not sure the exact dose. But what I might do is move on to the next question, if that's all right. Move on to the next, if that's all right, and we'll come back to further questions, Michelle.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. So I'm just going to do a quick run through just the community resources that are out there for everyone. So first we have the website, the Better Health Channel website. So they essentially have a page which has all of the information in a very succinct form that we've presented here today, in addition to other resources that we can all utilize. So feel free to check that out once our team sends out this slide deck. Another set of resources that we can utilize, especially if we're trying to spread awareness about thunderstorm asthma within our communities, whether that be internally with our teams and externally to like our audiences, would be to look at the Victorian Department of Health. So the Victorian Department of Health since 2016 has created a number of online resources that include like social media designs, posters, brochures, basically anything that we need. And they have it both in English and also other languages or language groups. So if you'd like access to any of that, those are the links that you can check out. They also have an online order form, which you can utilize to order any free printed content. So usually they give out, I think, brochures and posters. So those are definitely very helpful as well. Next slide, please, Rachel. Thank you. Yeah, and of course, there's also the Better Health Channel YouTube channel. I said channel twice, but there you go. YouTube channel, and they have a number of resources out there that goes through, what is thunderstorm asthma, and also has a really nice demonstration on how to give asthma first aid to someone or to yourself if you are experiencing an asthmatic, I suppose, attack. And there's also a few stories that are up there of individuals in the community, in different communities who've gone through thunderstorm asthma or other forms of asthma, and how they've made sure that they're prepared and their families are prepared if there are any other issues that arise in the future. And of course, there's heaps of translated videos for community members who would prefer videos in their own language as well. Awesome, thank you, Rachel. And this, I would say, is potentially one of the most important resources that are out there, and definitely very helpful for anyone who. Thank you for the thumbs up. Anyone who would like to keep track of when a thunderstorm asthma event is occurring. So I might just share my screen if that's okay, Rachel. Let me just. Thank you. Camera. Okay, let me know if you guys can see this. Nice, so I'll just go to this slide. Okay, so essentially, as Rachel was saying earlier, the Bureau of Meteorology does have quite a few resources, and all of that's kind of collated under Victorian Emergency. So the website here, I've just opened it up on a tab here, so I might just go through that with you. So once you click on that link through our slides, this will lead you directly to this website here. And from this website, what you can do is, there'll be heaps of like notifications for other things. And what you can do is just go to filter, just down there. Once you click on that, of course, you can click on whichever one you want, but in this case, we'd like to look at thunderstorm asthma forecasts. So we just click on that. And once you do, it'll give you a number of alerts. So as you can see already, there's quite a few alerts for thunderstorm asthma all throughout Victoria, probably because it's been a very cold and, I guess, cold and cloudy weather, but it's good to just stay up to date if something does happen. So we've got this, but if you'd like more specific like alerts that are more specific to the area you're located in, you can just type this up here. So just in this bar here, you can type in your address or your postcode. So personally for me, I live in South Morang. I don't know if this is like too personal information, but here we go. Once you click on that, it will just go down to like narrow down to the area you're in and provide any specific alerts for your area, which is quite handy. But obviously, of course, not everyone will have the luxury of just jumping onto a website and checking this out constantly. So in that case, it might be ideal to just download the app itself for your phones. So Vic Emergency app, that's available on both Android and Apple phones. So feel free to just check these links out and download it as needed. Yeah, so in terms of setting, the great thing about these apps is that you can set up an alert system on your phone, so you have it directly with you. I might just show you a video demonstration on how to set that up. Just for reference, of course, feel free to watch it again at another time when as needed. I might just play this now and quiet down. There you go. Let me know if you can hear it.
There are several ways you can access epidemic thunderstorm asthma information. For a 3-day forecast, go to the app menu or website. Select Prepare and Get Ready, then select Thunderstorm Asthma, then select Thunderstorm Asthma Forecast. This will show a rating of the likelihood of thunderstorm asthma as low, medium or high. Another way to access the current forecast is to click on My Current Location and select Filter and turn on the Thunderstorm Asthma Forecast Map overlay. You can also set up a watch zone to receive the advice and warnings on days when there is a high risk of thunderstorm asthma forecast or if a thunderstorm asthma event is occurring. To do this, select Create a Watch Zone. On the next screen, you can then type the address or suburb into the search box at the top and select the location from the suggested list that drops down. Next, adjust the watch zone radius by selecting the plus or minus buttons. If you're happy with the area that the blue circle covers on the map, select Next. Choose a name for your watch zone, for example, asthma, and type it into the text box. To receive all warnings for thunderstorm asthma, you must keep advice warnings selected. You don't need to select anything else as the warnings will be automatic. Next, you can modify the incidents you receive alerts for, as some are on by default. Incidents are different to warnings and not related to thunderstorm asthma. Scroll down to the incident section, select the arrows and choose what you want to receive notifications for. Once you are happy with your settings, just select the Save button. You will then see a pop-up that says your watch zone has been created. If you want to pause your alerts for a particular watch zone, you can switch them on or off on the home screen.
Awesome. Oh, so that's a nice little handy video to have. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it. Then that's pretty much it for me. Were there any questions? Oh, sorry, Nicole, go on.
Yeah, so are there any questions for either Ameera or Rachel at this point? You can either raise your hand or pop it into the chat. Yes, so we will be making the slides available. We'll send around a stakeholder pack after this to everyone that's attended, including the slides and links to the websites that we've mentioned as well. Any other questions, comments? No. If there's nothing else, I might give everyone a little bit of time back in their day, which we rarely get, which is nice. But I want to say thank you to everyone for attending today's forum. We really appreciate your attendance and participation in these types of events. If there's any further questions or anything you think of later, or anyone in your team has any other questions, feel free to reach out to us on engagement.nephu@austin.org.au. That's monitored Monday to Friday, so the working week will respond to you. We've also got a evaluation for this forum that my colleague Sam is going to drop into the chat. So if you could please fill that out, that'd be great. It's just good to get some feedback on what we're doing and make sure that we're targeting it correctly, and that I guess people find it useful. We'll, like I said, send around a post-forum stakeholder pack, which will include all the community resources outlined in the presentation and the presentation. But if you do have any other questions, like I said, please feel free to contact us. Philippa?
Will you also make the video recording of this available for other people?
Yes, so we will post a link to the video as well. Our lovely comms team will be putting it onto our YouTube page as well. So we'll send that link around to everyone as well, so that anyone else in your team that wants to look at it, like I said, they can look at the video and then send us any questions through that they do have. Any other last minute questions before we close today's forum?
Just want to thank everybody for attending today. It's been a great attendance and really appreciate all your questions as well. So thank you very much for helping keep the community safe.
Perfect. Thanks again, everyone. And you get 20 minutes back. Oh, Michelle, last minute hand. Oh, no, that was a clap. Okay, perfect. These things happen on Teams all the time. Perfect. Thanks again for attending today. And you get 20 minutes back in your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.